Hey guys, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches. I have an interesting episode for you here today. But before we jump into the meat and potatoes of how Tudor watches trick you into buying them, let's go ahead and get the quick fist watch check out of the way. And here it is. That's right, today I am wearing a Tudor watch. And hey man, don't shoot the messenger. If you like this video, please throw a like on it, even if you like Tudor watches, which I'm about to reveal the ugly truth. But before we go any further, let me say I actually own two Tudors. It's a brand that I like, I admire. This is the Tudor Pelagos Blue with the in-house movement. And this is the Black Bay Burgundy with the ETA movement. It's adorable and I really like it, and I think that these are very good watches for the money. But Tudor plays some tricks on you, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. I guess before we go a whole lot further, let me get a little bit out of the way in terms of who is Tudor, what is the deal with this company. The first thing to know is that they were formed by the same guy who founded Rolex, Hans Wilsdorf. Rolex and Tudor are sister companies, and both of them are wholly owned subsidiaries of the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, which is a charitable trust. So Rolex doesn't own Tudor, Tudor doesn't own Rolex, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation owns both of them, and so both of them fall under the umbrella of a Swiss charitable trust. Now, if you think the Swiss banking industry is secretive, boy, you should start talking about these Swiss charitable institutions. They enjoy a great level of secrecy, so there's a whole lot about the management, strategy of Tudor and Rolex that we basically are never going to know, but we can deduce from what's going on. Now, Tudor fell out of the United States market for a long time, but right around, I think it was 2015, they came back into the US. They came back strong. Correct me on the date if I got that wrong, guys. Also, by the way, throw a like, subscribe. 74% of you watch my videos regularly, yet you don't subscribe. Today only for you folks. It's free. Push the button. Do it now. So right around 2015, Tudor came back hard into the United States market. They opened up a bunch of ADs, and now wherever I am, I'm starting to see billboards for Tudors, and I'm starting to see authorized dealers, some of them in malls. Usually they're fairly high-end jewelry stores. And I think most of the, not all of the Tudor ADs that I see also have Rolex. Many of them apparently do not. But of course, most of us know that Tudor was started using spare parts from the Rolex factory back in the 30s and 40s and probably well into the 50s. And that you could get Rolex quality, but in a much more economically affordable brand. And that was really the essence of what Hans Wilsdorf wanted to do when he opened Tudor. He wanted to create a watch that was more for the everyman. Now, Rolex makes like literally everything. They have their own foundries, they select their own gemstones. They are really a one-stop shop in terms of vertical manufacturing. They make everything. That's Rolex. Tudor now has in-house movements, but their parts are kind of made and assembled for them at various locations throughout Switzerland, and then they're put together at their own factory in Geneva. But it's a different factory than the Rolex factory. But because we tend to equate Rolex and Tudor so closely associated together, we assume that the marketing strategy, that the scarcity is going to be the same. So really, to understand Tudor, first we have to talk about Rolex. For many years now, Rolex supply has been outstripped by demand, and this is no accident. As I have mentioned on this channel many times before, Rolex has a monstrous marketing budget of practically $100 million per year, which means in any given decade, they are spending $1 billion. That's B as in oh baby. That is a lot of money. So the demand for Rolex is sky high. But production is not sky high. They have deliberately contained production that's falling into even more drastic categories, which is to say, Rolex is creating demand, and they, I think, decided that they were going to create artificial shortages, but now I don't think those shortages are so artificial. I think they're actually happening as a matter of course, just due to the complexities of being a major manufacturing company during a pandemic. So we are very well used to how lucky we are if we can go get a Pepsi GMT as an example in Rolex. I mean, you could be on a wait list for 3 to 5 years easily, or you may never really even qualify to buy that watch. That's Rolex. But what about Tudor? Well, Tudor has a habit of introducing new watches with just as much fanfare and anticipation as Rolex does. These guys are very, very smart over there at Tudor. So what they do is they introduce a new watch with a great deal of anticipation, with a big marketing blitz. And here is the key trick that they employ, in my personal opinion and from observation. When they first introduce the watch, they just send out a few of them, okay? So when the Pelagos, for example, when this guy here, in all its blue glory, when it was new, you had to wait in order to get one. So I talked to the local AD. I think it took me 3 months maybe to get this watch. And so you figure it's going to be exactly like Rolex, which is to say you're going to be lucky if you can even get one. They're in such short supply. And in fact, for the first 6 months after Tudor introduces any new model, it's going to be in relatively short supply. Social media cranks up. Black Bay 58 is a perfect example. Social media cranks up. We start talking all about it. All the watch blogs start, writing all about it. And the next thing you know, all of us want the brand new G.I. Joe, and we want it before anybody else can get it. And we think there's going to be a shortage, so we want to jump the line somehow. And in fact, there kind of are shortages in the first 6 months, but I believe that in general, that is a strategy that has been perfected by Tudor. They deliberately only release a few of them. In so doing, what they do is they create this giant cachet. They create the aura that you will be a very lucky person if you're enabled to buy a Tudor. And in fact, in the comments of a lot of my Rolex videos, I have people saying that they couldn't get the Rolex that they wanted, but they were very lucky and they were able to buy the reasonably equivalent Tudor. And I think to myself, this is how they get you. They make you want a Rolex and then they make you settle for a Tudor, which is exactly how this works in most cases. Because here's part 2 of the trick. The first part, as I said, is they introduce a new model with a lot of fanfare and only trickle out just a few examples so that people will start getting them a little bit and start writing about them. They will have to wait for them. And so there's an incredible amount of anticipation and pent-up desire. And then just when there's like a long line around the block, Tudor ships like thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of them to their ADs all around the world. And all of a sudden, there is no exclusivity. There is plenty of supply. And before you know it, they're going to be on the used market falling like a rock in terms of pricing, a little bit similar to what happens to a Breitling on the secondary market. Now, because the Rolex shortages are true shortages, and because Rolex demand is super high, although supply of Rolex, yes, I do believe in non-pandemic times is artificially controlled a little bit, the control of Tudor is, I think, entirely artificial. It is, and not only is it artificial, but it is a strategy that they employ only at the beginning of the lifespan of a particular model. Boy, people were so happy if they managed to be one of the first people to get that new or then new Tudor GMT. But now there is zero problem. You are not lucky if you go buy a Tudor GMT. You just go buy one. It's like buying a Seiko. It's not hard to do. Now, I'm not saying these are bad watches. Remember, guys, I own 2 of them and I like them very much. But the problem with them, if there is any, is that the exclusivity is not quite there. And if you are buying it entirely based, or at least heavily based, on the fact that, I better get it now while I can, wipe that right out of your mind. You can get a Tudor pretty much any time that you want, even in these times. Now, I think especially when manufacturing comes back up and when shipping and supplies and travel is not such a big deal, I think that the relatively plentiful supply of Tudor is going to do nothing but get bigger. So here's the thing. If you buy Tudor, don't buy it because it's exclusive. Buy it because you like it. They make very nicely proportioned watches at reasonable prices given what they are. Swiss-made watches, a lot of them with in-house movements. So I have nothing bad to say about the brand. I like them quite a bit. But let me tell you something, guys. They are not Rolex. They are no Rolex. You are not lucky if you buy one. And if you have to sell it, you are going to get hosed, people. You are going to get hosed. So my best recommendation is take a look on the used market. Actually, I think eBay is a fine place to buy a Tudor, especially now that they are authenticating watches through eBay. And do your research. If you're going to buy a used Tudor on eBay, then make sure you're buying from a highly rated seller, number 1. And number 2, go into the sold and completed listings to see what these things are actually, to see what they're actually going for. This watch, I want to say, when I purchased it, this is the Pelagos, it retailed for, I think, $4,400. I did not receive much of a discount on it, but they did pay my tax for me, which was an equivalent of maybe an 8% discount, let's say. But I think you could buy this on the used market for probably almost like maybe about $1,000, not more, but less now, right? Several years later. So my point is, guys, you don't need to pay a premium on Tudor. You don't need to rush into the store and grab one. In fact, if I saw a Tudor that I really liked these days, I would probably want to wait maybe 18 months, and then I would start hunting for it on the forums used or on eBay, and I think you'll actually pay under retail. The trick that Tudor employs is they put on the cloak of Rolex, but underneath, they're not Rolex. They're just Tudor. Guys, tell me what you think. Do I have this right? Talk about it in the comments. I will join you there. If you don't subscribe, please do it now. I'll see you again soon. This is Goldberg. Peace out.
Paint the sky.